Hello everybody, my name is Ilse and this is hobbykr, the channel where I make content about anime events and culture, mostly in South Korea. Today is week 4 of my weekly anime review. I know I said last week that I would start making them on a Wednesday, but if the views for this are already abysmal, the views on Wednesday were like next level abysmal, so I'm going back to posting on Friday. This week I'll only be reviewing 4 animes since Bang Dream is sadly. We need time for it to catch up in Japan and then it took them out in the Blu-ray and I don't understand, but either way, we're not gonna have a Bang Dream episode this week. So let's begin this week's review with Darwin's Game. So this episode was like pretty exciting. I will give it to them, the animation this episode was like much better than last episode, but it was still really bad. And I just think that the writing is also a big issue. For example, in the beginning, it took the entire introduction of like convoluted words, and it wasn't even that poetic or interesting, just to say that the character's sigil is seeing the future. I mean, I'm not entirely sure that the sigil is just seeing the future, but it was a very convoluted way to just introduce what her ability was, and I really don't think that it added anything special to the episode. So in this episode, Kaname goes head to head with the florist who like becomes this golem of plant or whatever, and then like mid-fight he starts his monologue about how plants are better than animals and stronger and blah blah blah. Kaname is really tired at this point, he can't really produce weapons. I thought that his tactic of blowing up a flash grenade in front of the florist was smart. I liked that. But overall, I just felt that the battle was just like full of exposition, unnecessary dialogue, and like silliness, because I truly don't think that Kaname's weapons could have beat the florist. He seemed pretty OP. Anyway, I kind of like the symbolism of Kaname being like thrust into the church. I thought that was funny. And then I feel like this was like an ode to Kimetsu no Yaiba. As Kaname is about to die, he sees a vision of someone who is like himself in the future, or maybe his dad, or maybe his ancestor. Either way, someone that looks like him, who's like, "Are you sure this is your real power?" And then he has a realization. It was very that, especially because the guy is like a blacksmith and you know, he's wearing clothes from obviously a different time period. And it really reminded me of Kimetsu no Yaiba episode 19. And I thought it was really funny because like the quality of Darwin's Game is like here and Kimetsu no Yaiba is here. But I thought that was an interesting addition. I feel like it didn't quite fit the style of anime that Darwin's Game is, but whatever. Magically, Kaname has a vision about his power and he discovers that he can decrease the durability of the weapon but increase its power, and then he's able to beat the florist. And then they decide to form an alliance, the girl, Kaname, and the florist. The episode, again, just like last week, it was fine, it was entertaining. I'll watch it next week, but again, like if I hadn't started this series and I hadn't started watching Darwin's Game, I definitely would have dropped it by now. I am very much not interested in the lore or what's behind the game itself. I feel like it hasn't successfully built up the story, but again, I will keep watching it. Next anime. The next anime I'm going to be talking about is Pet. I've been seeing online that it seems that people are not liking it quite much. Personally, it's getting really good for me. I loved this week. Everything's kind of unraveling. We're seeing the true colors of everyone. So first of all, I just want to point out that I thought Katsuragi's past was really sad. Obviously, he seems to have been abused when he was like a child. And I mean, that would explain a lot of his tough demeanor. I thought that the sequence when he's, I don't know, what do you call it, like hypnotized by Hayashi was really well executed, and in such a slow amount of time, I bet it was less than a minute, that sequence, you were able to find out so much about his past. That's something that I've been really liking about when they go into the psyche of the characters, is that in such little amount of time they manage to tell you pretty much like everything about their background story. Also, it's obvious Tsukasa is like an actual psychopath. Last week I was like, oh, maybe he does care about Hiroki, but I think it's pretty obvious that he is like the mastermind behind this operation and that he's like actually evil and that he's probably just using Hiroki for his powers. And since they hadn't told him about the fact that they had lookouts and stuff, it's probable that if he did know that information, it would make him dangerous. So I think it's getting so interesting. I think this episode was just kind of like a stepping stone to what's going to happen next week. So I don't really have much to say about what happened, except that I'm really excited to be seeing kind of like the real relationship between all the characters. I'm really excited about the moment when Tsukasa finds out that, when Hiroki finds out that Tsukasa is like perhaps not the greatest person. And I'm also interested to see what happens in the sense that it seems that Hayashi actually cares a lot for Satoru. I mean, I'm not exactly sure why they were separated or why Hayashi wants to find Satoru again, but it seems like Hayashi does care a lot about Satoru, but it seems like Tsukasa doesn't care at all about Hiroki. So I wonder how that is going to kind of like modify the dynamic not only they have together, but Hiroki's own ability, because that means that his peak is going to be given by a person that betrayed him. And I think that has, just like in real life, when someone betrays you, that has the ability to literally change who you are as a person. So I think that's going to be a really interesting development. Also, I just want to reiterate how much of a banger the opening is. I love the opening so much, and I still haven't skipped it 1 month after. Next up is Nanabun no Nijuni. Haha, I said it right. As much as I didn't want to like this episode, I really liked it and I cried. I don't know what it is about. Honestly, like anything with music really makes me cry. Music really makes me cry, and the songs were just so nice in this episode. So basically in this episode we see the group's first live. Things go awry, and then Miu saves the day by playing the piano really beautifully, and then they sing, and basically their first concert is a success. We finally see Miu confess, in a way, to her mom, and we see her come out of her shell a little bit. I really liked, I mean, it was such a predictable plot twist, but it was still so cute, and it still tugged at my heartstrings, and it made me cry, and I was like, you know what, Miu? You were pissing me off for a moment there, but good for you. You managed to, you know, come out of your shell and give a good concert and kind of save the day. It's the first time that we got to see the 3D in action. It wasn't excellent. You can tell that there's still a lot to work on and that it's very rudimentary, but it was a great choice that they decided to do only the wide shots in 3D because you couldn't really pay attention to the details. And although the movements didn't really look very fluid from the wide shot, when you did the close shots, you were able to see 2D animation, which was good. So I'm curious to see if the 3D is gonna improve in future episodes, or if they're just gonna keep doing this thing where like the wide shots are in 3D and then the rest is in 2D. Just like I predicted last week, it seems that the anime is taking a more positive and happier turn. Although this episode still had that bittersweet element to it, it had less of the like esoteric, otherworldly, kind of like uncertain feeling that I felt the previous episodes had. Although the whole thing about the wall is still very strange, it seems like it doesn't matter because we are turning it into more of like a lighthearted, coming of age, success story about the idols. So I guess from now on the anime is going to be more and more lighthearted, unless the wall issues some crazy order like, I don't know, fight to the death or something like that. Then I don't think we're gonna see anything more dramatic, but honestly, I really liked this episode. Thankfully, I don't have any character that I particularly really like yet. I like the girl from Osaka. I don't like her name, but I think she's cute. I love the accent. I don't have anyone that I super like yet, so I feel like I'm not really attached to the anime yet, but I'm definitely going to keep watching, and I'm definitely going to look up their songs on Spotify. I know they're on Spotify, and I'm gonna take a listen to them again because I actually really liked the songs that they played on this episode. Also, I thought the overall animation outside of the 3D really improved this episode. The close-ups of the characters were really beautiful. I like the design for the eyes a lot in this, and overall I just really enjoyed the episode way more than I thought that I would be, and now I'm kind of like really glad I started watching, so I've been looking forward to next week. And lastly, the final series I'll be talking about this week, and the same as last week, the best anime of the week, Eid Invaded. So this episode again was so good. I'm completely in love with the art style now. I really like how different it is from like a lot of the stuff that is out there right now. And something that I didn't know before is that Eid is an original anime production, so it's not based on a manga. There is a manga that is being made right now as well, but the anime itself is an original production. So that's really good for the amount of quality that we are receiving. So this week was very centered on Hondomachi, who last week was kissed by one of the victims of the perforator. And it becomes very obvious from the beginning that the guy that kissed Hondomachi didn't really mean to do it, and it was kind of like a response to him having seen Hondomachi in the scene of the gravedigger. So they assume that he is the gravedigger, and that leads them on the hunt to find the real gravedigger, which seems to be the guy that kissed Hondomachi's high school girl that he liked, who apparently is a sadist and is the one that has been ordering the guy to bury all the people alive. So it was a very interesting episode, and I thought it was really interesting that we didn't focus on Irihisago and the well wasn't really a main focus of the story, but ultimately the main focus of the episode was Hondomachi. And something that is really interesting is that they have an interrogation with the perforator, and he says that no two holes are alike, and that he doesn't know how the hole is going to affect the victim. That makes sense because it's doing different damage to the brain to each victim, so obviously they would all respond differently, much like a real lobotomy in real life. Some people would become really passive and kind of like mush, and then some people would become really aggressive. So it makes sense that it would affect different people differently. So what I'm thinking is that for now, it seems like Hondomachi is just faring fairly well. It seems like she's back to her normal activities and being a detective, but it's obvious that the wound must have had an effect on her. So I'm assuming that in future episodes we're going to see how it actually affects her, and maybe she has taken a dark turn herself. Maybe she has urged to kill herself. So I think that's going to be a very interesting development as well. I'm curious to see what's going to happen next week. Much like Pet, I think this was a build-up to the most important part that is going to be next week. But all I have to say about it is that it was excellent animation again, great character design. The episode was concise, but it had so much information. It was exciting. I just love this anime, and like I said last week, if you're not watching Eid yet, please do it. It's so good. Thank you so much for watching this week again. As always, I will be back with another video this Sunday, and I will be back with another anime review next week. Until next time, goodbye.